everyone, it's Eric from Flywheel Studio here, and I'm making a quick video about how we look at metrics at Flywheel. And I want to preface this with quite a few things. So first, this is for an application that is already live. Okay, so you've developed the MVP, the MLP, the V1, it's live in the App Store, and you're wondering what's going on, what matters, how do I track it, where do I see this information? And today I'm going to go through some of those things that I can go through because there's a lot here. And I'm going to show you what I can. Now, I can't show you majority of the things that we see because it's client data, but I'll show you some of the applications that we own and just a few kind of numbers to give you an idea. And so first, I want to start about kind of the funnel here. And what I look at is 4 areas in particular. The first one is awareness, and that's at the top. And this is going to be people seeing your product and laying eyes on your product for the first time. Secondly, we have conversion. For majority of applications we work with, we consider conversion a download, okay? Now, that is not always the case. You could say that a conversion is a payment. You can say a conversion is a certain number of actions. There's a lot of different ways that you can break that down based on your definition. Typically, we would consider that a download from the App Store. And then activation is where the user completes a certain number of actions or completes the payment in the application, okay? Lastly, you have retention, which is that continuous loop of keeping those users in the application, performing the actions you want to incentivize, and ensuring that they, in short, if they're paying, that they aren't churning. So to go through these kind of a little bit, awareness at the top of the funnel, this is social media. How many people saw your ads or your posts on social media? How many people found your website, whether it's through SEO or through links that are in other websites? How many people found you through App Store search? And I'll show some numbers around that and kind of how you can see that. And then also just word of mouth. And there's a lot of other things here too. So you could have like affiliate marketing. You could be in the newspaper. There's a lot of different ways somebody can find an application. But this is the very tip top of that, of them first kind of hearing about it. And obviously, you kind of want to, in the initial phases, you cast your net as wide as you can. But over time, you kind of reel that in because more people seeing your app is not actually a good thing. If you have a gardening app, showing it to an entire football stadium of 70,000 people is probably not going to be great for your awareness. And maybe there are a lot of gardeners there, maybe not, but showing it to 100 people at a garden party or a garden conference would have better returns for you, at least on a percentage basis, than even showing a football stadium. Again, we almost always think of conversion as App Store download. It could be registration, it could be payment, it could be a specific number of app actions. Activation, usually payment for us, but sometimes people have it as the number of app actions. So for instance, for Slack, that's 2,000 messages for a group of 3 people. Once you have 2,000 messages, there's a 90% chance that you will be on the product a year later. And another way to think about it is activations when the user actually gets value. So for us, we quite often, most of our apps value is associated with payment, but that's not necessarily the case. So maybe a user pays to download the application, but you want them to keep paying. So you need them to perform actions in the app to get value. So you have to come up with your own metrics here. And then lastly, retention. I've covered that already. So let's kind of look at where you see this. And here's the really bad news. This is everywhere. Okay, all of these numbers are going to be in different places. Starting at the top, you're looking at website visits, okay? So you'd want to go into your Google Analytics and have a look around in here. This is a Google Analytics for an app, and we're going to come back to this, but you would probably install some analytics on your website. You can see views on posts or followers on social media. Some of these are very difficult to track, things like word of mouth. So maybe you're tracking referrals for that or something else. But to get a little bit more granular, in the App Store, and I'll make myself smaller here, you can see the number of impressions, okay? So you can see the number of times an app icon was viewed, the number of people that viewed the product page, okay, and then the total number of downloads. They will give you a conversion rate, okay? Now, this is one of our oldest apps. It's actually the first app I ever built. We do not market this at all, but that's why I can show you it. So obviously, you're looking at this top down, right? Impressions are at the top, page views, and then downloads. And all three of those might be subcomponents of the conversion process, okay? And what you can do is you can look at those and see what your drop-off rate is between each of these. You can also see the sources. So you can see, and I do not know where somebody would be referred to on this for web, but you can see how many people found this through the App Store search and through App Store browse. Okay, so that's the people that just for some reason see this when they are searching something in the App Store. The App Store will give you some acquisition information, okay, where people are finding it from. They will also give you benchmarks. I have never found these incredibly helpful, but to some degree, I wouldn't say that they hurt. They do have some retention information, but again, it's for users who have opted in. It's largely anonymous, and you are kind of bucketed in a very, very wide category. For example, our app, I would not necessarily really want to benchmark it against the rest of health and fitness. Okay. They also have some other metrics like project page views. You can see if you've got a big spike, and then they will give you some retention information. It is opt-in only. Okay. So I wouldn't rely on that. This is before somebody gets into your app. So now you've kind of got the number of people here who have downloaded it, and it's time to get into the application itself. Typically for us, and this is a different app that we have sold since we have sold this now, typically what we do is we put together a funnel and we basically say, okay, first open is at the top, and then every page to go through to get to the final place where we would consider it activation, we will set those steps up and look at the drop-off rate between each of those, okay? Now, after this, you are probably looking at a source like Revenue Cat or Stripe for payments, okay? You can see that in Google Analytics. You can also see it in the App Store if you are using in-app payments. They will tell you the proceeds here. By the way, Google Play has a similar feature and similar statistics to this. So obviously, you need to combine those two data sources and kind of marry them and aggregate them. You might segment them separately, but in the initial phases, I'd probably just consider them as one. Or maybe you choose to ignore one of them if it's not meaningful to your product. And then through Firebase, and really you can see this in Google Analytics as well, they will give you user retention by cohort built in, okay? So for those of you that do not have an application where you're necessarily looking at payments, but you're trying to see how long somebody stays in your app, user retention or activity by cohort is incredibly important. Looking at the aggregated number of users is a terrible statistic because it really hides how many people are staying on the application. I know some platforms really advertise that, and it does sound great, but if you have 100 users and they all quit in a day, and you get another 100 users, and you just say, "Hey, we have 100 users still," that's not really a good story, right? You could say, "Oh, we're flat, everything's great. We wish we were growing more," but really you are going to lose that new 100 users because you have a product issue. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to open up a new source here. Here's an example of some of the analytics we would track kind of top to bottom, okay? So we would start at looking at the total number of impressions, page views, downloads, and then when we get into the application, yes, we would look at the total number of users, but we'd also look at growth, okay? And we kind of find monthly active users, daily active users, engaged sessions, and find kind of all of these other things, including the conversion rate and some other metrics that we would follow. And then what we do is we really see where that drop off is between these, okay? And then we tackle the biggest drop offs first. And there's something really easy to say here. At the end of the day, a lot of people believe that you need to add more features to your application to make it better. And that is true on average in the long term, but that doesn't solve for early issues that we see with applications that have retention problems or acquisition problems. Okay. And the point here is if you are losing 90% of people before they actually sign up, then you are not losing them because of the features in your application. You're losing them because your assets are not appealing, the images in your app store. You're losing them because the copy is not appealing or enticing. It could be because they have difficulty with the onboarding process, and you can improve the look, the feel, maybe reduce resistance or the barriers to entry. It could be for a wide variety of reasons, but you have to dive into the analytics and kind of into this funnel here and understand each step of the process and what KPIs to track. Typically, we recommend picking one or two KPIs within this whole cycle that you want to track, and then looking at the levers you need to pull to improve those. Not every KPI is a good KPI to track. Typically, awareness is not really great. It really encourages people to go find users who will 100% either not convert, they will not activate, or if you did get them all the way through, they're going to churn. And that sounds great when you're acquiring them, but in the long run, that's not good for your product. Typically, we look at ways to improve the conversion rate, the number of people coming to the App Store listing that are downloading the application, the activation rate, and then we solve for retention. We always keep our eye on these analytics. Sometimes we look at them weekly, monthly, or quarterly, depending on the client and how much the app is kind of moving in its velocity. And then we really dive deep on solving each of those problems individually. If you have any questions, reach out to Flywheel Studio, and we're happy to help.